What appears to be a dye works or processing facility. Men are working around large ground-level vats filled with steaming, boiling liquid. The work area is wet, cluttered, and lacks any protective railings around the open vats. One worker brings a bucket to the edge of one vat. He pours the contents into the vat, triggering an immediate and violent eruption. A huge cloud of steam or a splash of boiling liquid erupts, knocking him off his feet and directly into the scalding contents. His co-workers react in a panic, rushing to his aid and desperately trying to pull him from the vat. This tragedy highlights multiple failures. First, the violent reaction suggests a dangerous chemical mix or adding a liquid to a much hotter one, causing it to flash boil. Second, the complete lack of guardrails around open vats of hazardous liquid is a critical safety violation. Inside another paper mill, a worker stands on a bench next to a machine with large rollers, attempting to manually feed a sheet of starter paper into the mechanism. This forces him to place his hands extremely close to the dangerous in-running nip point. As he guides the paper, his hand is caught by the rollers. The machine, designed to pull with immense force, relentlessly drags his arm and then his entire body into the spinning drums. A co-worker on an upper level sees the accident and frantically runs to an emergency stop button, but the damage is already done. Manually feeding material into live rollers is an exceptionally high-risk activity. This process should be automated or performed using specialized tools that keep the operator's hands far away from the nip points. On a narrow city street, two men are walking next to a building. A third man on the sidewalk tries to warn them, but it's too late. High above, a poorly secured pallet of heavy bags, likely at a construction site, slips from its position. The entire load plummets to the ground, landing directly on top of the two pedestrians and burying them instantly. All overhead work, especially lifting operations, requires the area below to be completely cordoned off to prevent anyone from entering the drop zone. Inside a brightly lit beauty salon, clients are receiving treatments while an employee works at a shelf. The calm is shattered in an instant as a large truck, having lost control on the street outside, smashes through the glass storefront. The vehicle plows deep into the salon, sending debris flying and narrowly missing the terrified occupants who scramble for safety. This shocking incident is a reminder that even indoor spaces can be vulnerable to external traffic hazards, especially those located at street level. In a cluttered workshop, a man works near a large machine with an exposed, rapidly rotating flywheel. He's wearing a loose, untucked shirt, a critical mistake around this type of equipment. As he moves past the machine, the back of his shirt is snagged by the flywheel. He is instantly whipped around with incredible violence, spinning in the air as the machine wraps his clothing tighter and tighter around the axle. His co-workers rush in a panic to shut off the power, but the momentum continues to spin him violently. This is a textbook example of why loose clothing is forbidden around rotating machinery. It can be grabbed in an instant, leading to horrific injuries or death. All flywheels and drive shafts must be properly guarded. This onboard footage from a city bus captures the driver navigating through traffic. A passenger stands near the front, talking on the phone. Without warning, a vehicle from the oncoming lane swerves directly into the bus's path, resulting in a devastating head-on collision. The impact is catastrophic, shattering the windshield and sending the passenger flying violently forward. The aftermath shows the complete destruction of the bus's front end. This is a brutal reminder of the immense forces involved in high-speed collisions and the importance of defensive driving and constant vigilance on the road. Inside a mobile MRI trailer, a technician is in the control room while an elderly patient using a metal walker is brought into the scanning room. As the patient gets close to the MRI machine, its powerful magnetic field suddenly activates, violently pulling the walker and the patient with it into the machine. This is a terrifying illustration of a fundamental MRI safety rule. No metallic objects are allowed near the machine while it is operational. Strict screening protocols are mandatory to prevent such a dangerous event. At a tire repair shop, a group of mechanics is gathered around a large truck tire that is being inflated. Without warning, the tire fails and explodes with devastating force. The blast wave throws the men violently in all directions. This type of catastrophic failure is a known risk with high-pressure tires. To prevent injury, such tires must always be inflated inside a reinforced safety cage, which is designed to contain the explosive force. An industrial worker performs hot work near large storage tanks. The sparks suddenly ignite flammable vapors in the area, causing a massive explosion. This highlights the critical need for hot work permits, which require testing the atmosphere for flammable gases and clearing the area of combustibles before starting. A brightly decorated truck becomes stuck while attempting to cross a set of railway tracks. Several people on the ground notice the impending danger as a train approaches at high speed. Despite their frantic attempts to signal, there is not enough time for the train to stop. The locomotive collides with the truck, obliterating it in an instant. This tragic incident is a stark reminder to never stop a vehicle on a railway crossing for any reason. In a narrow alleyway next to a construction site, pedestrians and workers move about. High above, a large blue panel is improperly secured to the scaffolding. Without warning, the panel detaches and plummets to the ground, narrowly missing several people before striking a worker. This incident is a stark reminder of the dangers of unsecured overhead materials. All items at height must be securely fastened, and exclusion zones should be established below to prevent anyone from entering a potential drop zone. At a high-rise construction site, a crane is lifting a load. A worker on the ground, standing directly under the operation, gets his clothing snagged by the rigging as the load ascends. He is hoisted dozens of feet into the air before losing his grip and falling. This tragic event underscores multiple safety failures. Workers should never be positioned under a suspended load, and proper rigging procedures must ensure no loose equipment or clothing can become entangled. Furthermore, this demonstrates the absolute necessity for fall protection equipment when working at height. At a loading dock, two men are attempting to close the rear doors of a large shipping container. As they struggle with the latches, the truck, which is not properly secured, begins to roll backward. One man fails to get out of the way in time and is horrifically crushed between the trailer and the dock. This fatal incident was entirely preventable. The number one rule when working with trailers is to always secure the vehicle with wheel chocks before any loading or unloading activities begin, to prevent any unintended movement. In a large metal fabrication facility, a group of workers is elevated in a makeshift man basket attached to the forks of a forklift. As the operator maneuvers the unstable setup, the forklift loses its balance and tips over, sending the workers crashing to the ground. This demonstrates a severe misuse of equipment. Forklifts are designed for lifting materials, not people. Only purpose-built aerial work platforms, or man lifts, which provide a stable and secure base, should be used for elevating personnel, ensuring proper training and adherence to weight limits. A forklift operator is unloading a tall, unstable pallet of bottled drinks from the back of a truck. As he backs away, the load begins to tip. The driver makes the fatal mistake of jumping from his cab to try and manually steady the falling pallet. but he is instantly overwhelmed by the weight and crushed beneath it. This is a tragic lesson in instinct versus training. The correct procedure is to let the load fall. No product is worth a human life. Always prioritize personal safety and stay clear of shifting or falling materials. In a stone or woodworking shop, a worker is standing near a series of large, heavy slabs that are stored vertically without proper support. When he attempts to move one, it triggers a domino effect, causing the entire stack to topple over onto him. The immense weight leaves him with no chance of escape. This incident shows a critical failure in material storage. Heavy, unstable items like slabs must be stored in specifically designed A-frame racks that prevent them from tipping and ensure they can be handled safely one at a time. In a busy shipping port at night, a straddle carrier is positioning a container next to a tall stack. The operator misjudges the distance and collides with the stack, destabilizing it completely. A cascade of containers topples over, crashing down onto a nearby yard truck and its driver. This highlights the need for extreme precision and situational awareness in container yards. Operators must manage their speed and maintain safe clearance distances at all times to prevent catastrophic chain reactions. During an unloading operation, a worker stands on a flatbed truck next to a massive, unsecured pipe. As workers on the ground begin to move it, the pipe suddenly rolls off the side of the truck, crushing the man standing in its path. This is a classic line-of-fire accident. When handling heavy, cylindrical objects, workers must never position themselves on the downhill side. Loads must be chocked and secured until a controlled offloading process, guided by machinery, can be initiated safely. Inside a factory, a worker stands directly beneath a large metal sheet being moved by an overhead crane with a clamp-style lift. The clamps suddenly fail, and the heavy sheet drops directly onto the worker. The lesson here is absolute. Never, under any circumstances, stand or work under a suspended load. All lifting operations require a cleared area below, and workers should use taglines from a safe distance to guide the load, eliminating the risk of being in the drop zone. At a residential construction site, a mini excavator is digging a deep trench right alongside the foundation of a concrete wall. Several workers are in the immediate vicinity. The excavation undermines the wall's support, causing it to suddenly collapse into the trench, burying one worker and sending others scrambling. This is a critical failure in excavation safety. Never dig in a way that compromises the structural integrity of nearby buildings or walls. Proper shoring, sloping, and professional assessment are required before beginning any such work. Inside a vast recycling facility, a person is walking through an area with huge piles of plastic waste. An approaching front-end loader, tasked with moving the material, has a significant blind spot. The operator does not see the person and proceeds to push them with a full bucket, burying them under a mountain of refuse. This highlights the critical need for strict separation of pedestrian traffic and heavy machinery in industrial environments. High visibility vests and clear, designated walkways are essential to prevent such tragic accidents. In an incredibly dangerous act, a worker is lowered into a deep, narrow trench while standing in the bucket of an excavator. As he reaches the bottom, the unstable, unshored walls of the trench give way, burying him instantly. This scene shows two fatal errors. First, machinery buckets should never be used to transport personnel. Second, any trench of this depth requires proper shoring or benching to prevent a collapse. This was a completely preventable tragedy caused by ignoring fundamental safety rules. In a factory, a worker enters the safety-fenced area of an automated production line to make an adjustment. Without warning, the robotic stacking machine activates, moving along its track and crushing the worker against a stationary part of the line. This is a deadly failure of lockout-tagout procedures. Before any worker enters a machine's operational space, the equipment must be completely de-energized, locked, and tagged to ensure it cannot be started accidentally. A man is operating a tracked post-hole drilling rig in a grassy field next to a property line. As he drills, the auger strikes a high-pressure underground gas line. A massive explosion of dirt and gas erupts, violently throwing the machine and operator backward. This dangerous event underscores the universal rule: call before you dig. Always have underground utilities professionally marked before any excavation or drilling to prevent life-threatening encounters with gas, electric, or water lines. On a snow-covered street, a front-end loader is clearing snow near parked cars. A pedestrian, walking on the street due to the snow-covered sidewalk, moves into the loader's path. The operator, likely dealing with blind spots, makes a turn and strikes the person, knocking them down. This illustrates the heightened risks in adverse weather. Operators of heavy machinery must exercise extreme caution, while pedestrians should make themselves visible and avoid the operational area of such equipment. In a warehouse, a worker stands in a marked walkway, completely absorbed by his phone. Meanwhile, a tugger train approaches from behind. The driver initiates a turn, causing the trailing carts to swing wide and collide with the distracted worker, knocking him to the ground. This incident is a lesson in mutual responsibility and situational awareness. Pedestrians must always be aware of their surroundings, especially around mobile equipment, and operators must ensure their path is clear before turning. Inside a factory, two workers are performing maintenance within a robotic cell, apparently having bypassed the safety gates. One worker leans over a component just as the large robotic arm activates unexpectedly. The arm swings around and crushes the man's head and upper body against a fixed part of the machinery. This is a horrific example of why bypassing safety interlocks is forbidden. Proper lockout-tagout procedures are the only way to safely service robotic equipment, guaranteeing all energy sources are isolated before entry.
City Street. A passenger exits a parked car and steps directly into the path of oncoming traffic without looking. A moving car strikes him at speed. This tragic event serves as a basic but vital reminder.
At a car wash, a woman is cleaning her vehicle, which is parked on an inclined ramp without wheel chocks. The car suddenly begins to roll backward. The woman attempts to stop it, but is tragically caught and crushed between the moving vehicle and a wall. This incident underscores the absolute necessity of securing a vehicle on any incline. Always engage the parking brake and use wheel chocks to prevent unintended movement, especially when working around the vehicle. On a highway, a tanker truck begins emitting a thick cloud of orange smoke, signaling a dangerous chemical reaction. The driver pulls over, exits the cab, and climbs directly on top of the tanker to inspect the leak, exposing himself to the toxic fumes. Suddenly, the pressure builds, and a massive plume of gas erupts. When dealing with hazardous materials, the primary rule is to evacuate and establish a safe perimeter. Never approach a leaking or reacting chemical tanker. Immediately contact emergency services. At a rustic outdoor lumber mill, a worker in a red cap is feeding logs into a wood veneer peeling machine. The machine features large, powerful, and completely unguarded rotating drums. The operator pushes a log into the machine, but as it's pulled in, his gloved left hand follows too closely. Instantly, the rollers grab the glove and yank his entire arm into the crushing mechanism. He is trapped and in agony as his co-workers frantically rush to his aid, struggling to figure out how to stop or reverse the powerful machine before it's too late. This is a brutal example of an unguarded nip point. All rotating machinery must have physical guards that prevent any part of a worker's body from reaching the danger zone. Furthermore, using a push stick would have kept his hands at a safe distance. Inside a massive industrial plant, a worker stands on an elevated platform, positioned dangerously close to a large, rapidly spinning and completely exposed drive shaft. He appears to be performing some sort of task or inspection near the powerful mechanism. In a horrifying instant, a piece of his clothing is snagged by the shaft. With terrifying speed and force, he is violently pulled from his feet, wrapped around the shaft, and becomes part of the rotating mass. The incident is over in seconds. This shows why exposed rotating shafts are one of the most unforgiving industrial hazards. They must always be completely enclosed in a safety guard. Inside a machine shop, an operator leans deep into the work area of a large industrial milling machine to make an adjustment, placing his head and torso directly in the path of the tool head. It appears he failed to properly shut down the machine first. Suddenly, the machine cycles. The massive milling head descends with immense force, crushing him against the workpiece below. This tragic event is a direct consequence of bypassing safety protocols. Lockout, tagout procedures are mandatory for a reason. They ensure a machine is completely de-energized before any maintenance is performed. On a narrow city street, two men are walking next to a building. A third man on the sidewalk tries to warn them, but it's too late. High above, a poorly secured pallet of heavy bags, likely at a construction site, slips from its position. The entire load plummets to the ground, landing directly on top of the two pedestrians and burying them instantly. All overhead work, especially lifting operations, requires the area below to be completely cordoned off to prevent anyone from entering the drop zone. Inside a brightly lit beauty salon, clients are receiving treatments while an employee works at a shelf. The calm is shattered in an instant as a large truck, having lost control on the street outside, smashes through the glass storefront. The vehicle plows deep into the salon, sending debris flying and narrowly missing the terrified occupants who scramble for safety. This shocking incident is a reminder that even indoor spaces can be vulnerable to external traffic hazards, especially those located at street level. In a cluttered workshop, a man works near a large machine with an exposed, rapidly rotating flywheel. He's wearing a loose, untucked shirt, a critical mistake around this type of equipment. As he moves past the machine, the back of his shirt is snagged by the flywheel. He is instantly whipped around with incredible violence, spinning in the air as the machine wraps his clothing tighter and tighter around the axle. His co-workers rush in a panic to shut off the power, but the momentum continues to spin him violently. This is a textbook example of why loose clothing is forbidden around rotating machinery. It can be grabbed in an instant, leading to horrific injuries or death. All flywheels and drive shafts must be properly guarded. This onboard footage from a city bus captures the driver navigating through traffic. A passenger stands near the front, talking on the phone. Without warning, a vehicle from the oncoming lane swerves directly into the bus's path, resulting in a devastating head-on collision. The impact is catastrophic, shattering the windshield and sending the passenger flying violently forward. The aftermath shows the complete destruction of the bus's front end. This is a brutal reminder of the immense forces involved in high-speed collisions and the importance of defensive driving and constant vigilance on the road. At a construction site, several workers are standing on top of a newly constructed, unbraced masonry wall. A powerful gust of wind suddenly hits the tall, unstable structure. The wall acts like a sail, and it cannot withstand the lateral force. The entire section collapses, sending the workers plummeting several stories to the ground below amidst a cascade of bricks and scaffolding. This is a tragic failure in construction sequencing. Tall, thin walls must be properly braced against lateral forces like wind until the full structure is completed and can provide support. Two men are attempting to move a large, top-heavy commercial refrigerator or vending machine. They are using an improper method, trying to slide and pivot it by hand without proper equipment like a dolly or pallet jack. As they maneuver the appliance, its high center of gravity causes it to become unstable. It begins to tip over, and one of the men is unable to get out of the way. The incredibly heavy machine falls directly on top of him, crushing him against the floor. Moving heavy and tall objects requires careful planning and the use of appropriate mechanical aids to prevent them from tipping over. During nighttime road construction, a worker in a high-visibility vest walks near a large wheeled excavator. The operator begins to swing the machine's cab to reposition it. The worker is standing in the excavator's massive blind spot. As the cab rotates, the heavy counterweight swings around and pins the unsuspecting man against a stack of concrete barriers, crushing him. Swing radius accidents are a common and deadly hazard. Ground personnel must never enter the swing radius of an excavator without first getting confirmation from the operator that they have been seen. Inside a workshop, two men are performing maintenance on a large industrial machine. They are positioned directly underneath a heavy, suspended component of the apparatus. It appears the component was either improperly supported or the lifting mechanism failed. Suddenly, the entire assembly gives way and collapses downwards, crushing both workers beneath its immense weight. This is a fatal violation of a primary safety rule. Never work under a suspended load. Heavy components must be physically secured with certified blocks or safety stands before any personnel are allowed to work underneath them. In a chaotic street intersection, a pedestrian begins to cross the road. At the same time, a wheeled excavator makes a turn, its operator's view obstructed. The operator does not see the pedestrian, and the front of the heavy machine strikes her, knocking her to the ground. Continuing its turn, the operator, still unaware of the collision, drives directly over her. Heavy equipment operating in public spaces poses an immense risk. Operators must use extreme caution and have a clear line of sight, while pedestrians should never assume a driver has seen them. On a building's upper level, a worker in a red shirt walks dangerously close to an unprotected edge. There are no guardrails or safety lines in place. In a moment of distraction, he takes a step back without looking, misjudging his position, and plummets to the ground. This tragic fall highlights why fall protection is non-negotiable when working at heights. Any open edge requires guardrails or the mandatory use of personal fall arrest systems. Engineering controls are far more reliable than relying on situational awareness alone. At another construction site, a worker standing on a concrete ledge attempts to cross a gap using a single, unsecured wooden plank as a bridge. The instant he transfers his weight onto the plank, it flips and gives way beneath him, causing him to fall. This incident is a stark reminder of the dangers of using makeshift walkways. All temporary platforms must be properly engineered, secured at both ends, and load-rated to prevent catastrophic failure. In a large industrial yard, a forklift operator moves a large bin that completely obstructs his forward view. Meanwhile, two workers walk through the active vehicle area, seemingly oblivious to the moving machinery. As the forklift makes a wide turn, the operator, blind to the pedestrian directly in his path, strikes the man and runs him over. His colleague can only watch in horror. This devastating incident reveals multiple critical safety failures. Operators must never travel with a load that obstructs their view. If unavoidable, they must travel in reverse or use a spotter. Furthermore, dedicated, clearly marked pedestrian walkways must be established to segregate people from heavy machinery. From a scooter's point of view, we see the rider following a large cement mixer on a narrow road bordered by a rock face. The rider makes the dangerous decision to overtake on the right shoulder, where there is no lane. The space rapidly narrows, leading to a direct collision with the rock wall. This illustrates a vital traffic safety rule. Never overtake a large vehicle on the right, especially in a non-designated lane due to massive blind spots. A female worker in a red safety vest stands near a large industrial mixing machine, placing her hand on it. Without warning, the machine begins to move forward. She's instantly knocked off her feet and pulled underneath the heavy equipment. The primary failure here is a lack of a proper lockout tagout procedure. Before any maintenance or interaction in the immediate vicinity of such machinery, it must be de-energized and locked out to prevent unexpected startup. Inside a textile factory, a man is operating a large warping machine with a massive rotating beam. As he works near the intake, his clothing gets caught by the powerful roller. He is instantly pulled off his feet and violently spun around as he's dragged into the machinery. His co-workers rush to stop the machine, but the incident has already occurred. This horrific accident underscores the danger of wearing loose clothing around rotating equipment. Furthermore, machines of this type must have emergency stops within easy reach and proper guarding to prevent any possibility of contact with moving parts. In a steel warehouse, a worker stands directly underneath a massive coil of sheet metal being moved by an overhead crane. Suddenly, the clamp holding the multi-ton roll fails, and the coil drops, instantly crushing the man below. This is an absolute violation of the most basic overhead lifting rule. Never, under any circumstances, position yourself under a suspended load. Safe zones must be clearly established and enforced. At an excavation site, several workers are standing perilously close to the edge of a deep pit, while an excavator works above them. The operator swings the bucket, either misjudging the distance or not seeing the worker below, and knocks one man directly into the excavation. This highlights a severe lack of communication and site control. Workers on foot should never be in the swing radius of heavy equipment, and operators must ensure their path is clear before moving. In a heavy manufacturing plant, workers are gathered around a massive engine assembly being lifted by an overhead crane. The rigging suddenly gives way, and the entire multi-ton apparatus crashes to the floor, shattering on impact and narrowly missing several people. The incident was caused by a catastrophic rigging failure. All lifting equipment, including slings and shackles, must be inspected before each use and rated for a weight far exceeding the load. A crane operator lowers a large bundle of sacks into an open pit in a factory floor. A female worker stands on the edge to guide the load. As the heavy bundle swings, its momentum pushes her off balance, and she falls backward into the hole. Workers should never use their bodies to directly guide a suspended load. Taglines should always be used to control the load from a safe distance, away from fall hazards. Two technicians are working on a large CNC machine. As one of them leans in and touches a component, he receives a severe electrical shock, causing him to convulse and collapse. This points to either damaged wiring or a failure to properly de-energize and lock out the machine before beginning service work. Inside what appears to be a paper recycling facility, a worker is manually pushing material into the opening of a large industrial pulper. He leans too far over the unguarded opening, loses his footing, and is instantly pulled into the powerful machine. A large plume of dust and steam erupts from the machine. This tragedy was entirely preventable. The machine's feed opening must have been equipped with proper guarding and a feed system, like a conveyor belt, to eliminate the need for any worker to be near the point of operation. A worker wearing a hard hat walks backward into the path of a reversing cement mixer truck. The driver, likely unable to see him in the blind spot, continues to back up, striking the man and knocking him to the ground. All large vehicles must be equipped with backup alarms, and drivers should use a spotter when reversing in areas with pedestrian traffic. Pedestrians, in turn, must remain aware of their surroundings. A worker enters the safety enclosure of a large industrial robotic arm while it is still operational. The robot activates, moving swiftly along its programmed path, and pins the man against a stationary part of the cell. Safety interlocks on gates are designed to prevent this. They must never be bypassed. In a garage, two mechanics are working on a large, inflated truck tire that is not in a safety cage. The tire suddenly explodes with catastrophic force, throwing both men across the workshop. Inflating large tires must always be done within a reinforced safety cage to contain the explosive energy in case of a blowout. A worker stands next to a flatbed trailer heavily loaded with stacked steel I-beams. The load, which is not properly secured, suddenly shifts and slides off the side of the trailer, burying the man underneath. All heavy loads must be secured with appropriate chains or straps to prevent any movement during transport or unloading. A forklift carrying a wide metal sheet is positioned partially on a public road as a scooter approaches. Due to the load obstructing the view and path, an unexpected situation occurs as the scooter's path intersects with the carried material. This highlights the critical importance of traffic management when work zones extend into public areas. Using spotters, clear signage, and securing the area helps ensure visibility for both equipment operators and the public, preventing unforeseen incidents. Inside a fenced-off automated work cell, a robotic arm is active on a production line while a worker is present inside the enclosure. The robotic arm, following its programmed path, makes a sudden movement, leading to an unexpected interaction with the individual inside the safety perimeter. This incident underscores the necessity of strict lockout-tagout procedures. Automated equipment must be completely powered down and de-energized before any personnel enter a guarded area for maintenance, adjustments, or cleaning. In a loading yard at night, a forklift operator is loading pallets onto a large truck while a pedestrian walks nearby. As the forklift maneuvers a pallet, its movement creates a hazardous situation where the pedestrian is positioned between the equipment and the truck. Maintaining clear and constant communication between forklift operators and pedestrians is vital. Establishing designated safe zones for drivers and using high-visibility clothing can significantly reduce the risk of such close-quarters incidents. Two workers are near a large industrial press. One worker leans into the machine's operational area to perform a task. While the worker is partially inside the equipment, a sudden mechanical issue appears, causing the press to cycle unexpectedly. Never place any part of your body into machinery that is not properly locked and tagged out. This preventative measure is essential to ensure equipment cannot activate during maintenance or manual adjustments, safeguarding personnel from unexpected machine movement. In a stone-cutting workshop, a worker positions a large, vertically stored slab of stone that is being moved by an overhead crane. As the worker adjusts the slab, the rigging or the slab itself becomes unstable. The resulting chain reaction causes adjacent slabs to give way. Handling heavy, vertically stored materials requires meticulous planning. Ensuring loads are properly secured, using appropriate rigging for the material, and maintaining a safe distance from suspended or unstable items are key to preventing a loss of balance. At a shipping port, a container handler is operating near a tall stack of shipping containers. During a maneuver, the equipment makes contact with the bottom of the stack. The movement leads to a loss of balance, causing the entire stack of containers to shift and give way. Operating heavy machinery requires exceptional spatial awareness. Verifying clearance, ensuring ground stability, and adhering to proper stacking procedures are fundamental to maintaining structural integrity and preventing large-scale incidents in storage yards. In an outdoor lumber yard, a forklift is operating while a pedestrian walks into the area behind the stationary machine. The forklift operator begins to reverse, and an unexpected situation occurs as the machine's path intersects with the pedestrian's. Constant situational awareness is crucial for both equipment operators and pedestrians in a dynamic work environment. The use of backup alarms, mirrors, and designated walkways helps create a more predictable and safer workspace for everyone. At a recycling facility, a worker is inside a large scrap metal baling press, seemingly clearing material. In the background, another heavy machine is operating. An unexpected event takes place when the operator of the other machine drops a load of scrap material into the baler while the worker is still inside. This scenario is a powerful reminder of the absolute necessity of lockout-tagout procedures. Before entering any equipment, it must be fully isolated from power sources, and all personnel must be notified to prevent accidental activation. In a warehouse, a forklift operator is attempting to load a large, crated item onto the flatbed of a small truck. As the operator lifts and positions the crate, the load on the forklift becomes unstable and tips forward off the forks. Load security and balance are paramount in forklift operations. Always ensure loads are centered, stable, and within the machine's capacity. Clear communication and keeping a safe distance are essential, especially when transferring materials between equipment. In a commercial bakery, a worker is cleaning around a large industrial dough mixer. The worker reaches into the machine's mixing bowl while it is still operational. The equipment's moving parts create an unexpected situation, drawing the worker further in. Machine guarding and proper shutdown procedures are non-negotiable safety rules. Never bypass guards or reach into moving equipment for any reason. Always stop the machine completely before cleaning or performing any manual tasks. A worker in a textile factory is making an adjustment to a large roll of fabric as it is being fed into a processing machine. While interacting with the moving material, the movement leads to a loss of balance, and the worker is drawn into the machine's rotating components. Maintaining a safe distance from moving rollers, gears, and belts is crucial. All rotating equipment should have proper guarding and emergency stop mechanisms that are easily accessible to prevent workers from becoming entangled. On a narrow city street, two men are walking next to a building. A third man on the sidewalk tries to warn them, but it's too late. High above, a poorly secured pallet of heavy bags, likely at a construction site, slips from its position. The entire load plummets to the ground, landing directly on top of the two pedestrians and burying them instantly. All overhead work, especially lifting operations, requires the area below to be completely cordoned off to prevent anyone from entering the drop zone. Inside a brightly lit beauty salon, clients are receiving treatments while an employee works at a shelf. The calm is shattered in an instant as a large truck, having lost control on the street outside, smashes through the glass storefront. The vehicle plows deep into the salon, sending debris flying and narrowly missing the terrified occupants who scramble for safety. This shocking incident is a reminder that even indoor spaces can be vulnerable to external traffic hazards, especially those located at street level. In a cluttered workshop, a man works near a large machine with an exposed, rapidly rotating flywheel. He's wearing a loose, untucked shirt, a critical mistake around this type of equipment. As he moves past the machine, the back of his shirt is snagged by the flywheel. He is instantly whipped around with incredible violence, spinning in the air as the machine wraps his clothing tighter and tighter around the axle. His co-workers rush in a panic to shut off the power, but the momentum continues to spin him violently. This is a textbook example of why loose clothing is forbidden around rotating machinery. It can be grabbed in an instant, leading to horrific injuries or death. All flywheels and drive shafts must be properly guarded. This onboard footage from a city bus captures the driver navigating through traffic. A passenger stands near the front, talking on the phone. Without warning, a vehicle from the oncoming lane swerves directly into the bus's path, resulting in a devastating head-on collision. The impact is catastrophic, shattering the windshield and sending the passenger flying violently forward. The aftermath shows the complete destruction of the bus's front end. This is a brutal reminder of the immense forces involved in high-speed collisions and the importance of defensive driving and constant vigilance on the road. At a construction site, several workers are standing on top of a newly constructed, unbraced masonry wall. A powerful gust of wind suddenly hits the tall, unstable structure. The wall acts like a sail, and it cannot withstand the lateral force. The entire section collapses, sending the workers plummeting several stories to the ground below amidst a cascade of bricks and scaffolding. This is a tragic failure in construction sequencing. Tall, thin walls must be properly braced against lateral forces like wind until the full structure is completed and can provide support. Two men are attempting to move a large, top-heavy commercial refrigerator or vending machine. They are using an improper method, trying to slide and pivot it by hand without proper equipment like a dolly or pallet jack. As they maneuver the appliance, its high center of gravity causes it to become unstable. It begins to tip over, and one of the men is unable to get out of the way. The incredibly heavy machine falls directly on top of him, crushing him against the floor. Moving heavy and tall objects requires careful planning and the use of appropriate mechanical aids to prevent them from tipping over. During nighttime road construction, a worker in a high-visibility vest walks near a large wheeled excavator. The operator begins to swing the machine's cab to reposition it. The worker is standing in the excavator's massive blind spot. As the cab rotates, the heavy counterweight swings around and pins the unsuspecting man against a stack of concrete barriers, crushing him. Swing radius accidents are a common and deadly hazard. Ground personnel must never enter the swing radius of an excavator without first getting confirmation from the operator that they have been seen. Inside a workshop, two men are performing maintenance on a large industrial machine. They are positioned directly underneath a heavy, suspended component of the apparatus. It appears the component was either improperly supported or the lifting mechanism failed. Suddenly, the entire assembly gives way and collapses downwards, crushing both workers beneath its immense weight. This is a fatal violation of a primary safety rule. Never work under a suspended load. Heavy components must be physically secured with certified blocks or safety stands before any personnel are allowed to work underneath them. In a chaotic street intersection, a pedestrian begins to cross the road. At the same time, a wheeled excavator makes a turn, its operator's view obstructed. The operator does not see the pedestrian, and the front of the heavy machine strikes her, knocking her to the ground. Continuing its turn, the operator, still unaware of the collision, drives directly over her. Heavy equipment operating in public spaces poses an immense risk. Operators must use extreme caution and have a clear line of sight, while pedestrians should never assume a driver has seen them. On a freshly paved road, a group of workers is standing near the curb as a large road grader passes by. Suddenly, one of the grader's massive tires explodes with tremendous force, sending a shockwave and debris flying. The workers are knocked off their feet by the blast. This highlights the hidden dangers of high-pressure tires on heavy machinery. A catastrophic tire failure can be as violent as a bomb. The lesson is the critical importance of regular tire inspection and maintenance to prevent overpressurization or damage that could lead to a deadly blowout. In a snowy industrial yard, a team uses a crane to position a large structural beam onto a truck. During the maneuver, the lifting slings suddenly detach, and the beam experiences an uncontrolled descent onto the vehicle's flatbed. Rigorous pre-lift inspection of all rigging components, including slings and attachment points, is essential. Establishing and respecting a clear drop zone, free of all personnel, is a fundamental rule for any overhead lifting operation. In an alleyway, one individual works on a forklift while others are nearby. An attempt to use manual force as a counterweight causes the forklift to become unstable and tip forward unexpectedly. Heavy machinery should never be subjected to forces or uses outside of its design specifications. Proper training ensures operators understand the principles of vehicle stability and load balance. A worker tends to materials at the end of an automated production line in a factory. Without warning, a mechanical issue causes a large panel to be ejected from the machine at high velocity. This scenario highlights the importance of properly installed machine guarding and safety sensors. Maintaining a safe operational distance and being aware of potential ejection zones are key defensive practices. An operator is feeding materials into a large, powerful industrial press. The operator's hands enter the point of operation as the machine begins its cycle, requiring a rapid reaction to move clear. When working with industrial presses, always use tools to handle materials and keep hands away from moving parts. Two-hand activation controls and light curtains are critical engineering controls that prevent such close calls. At a busy port, a large forklift operates near a pedestrian walking through the active work zone. The forklift operator, maneuvering in reverse, does not see the pedestrian walking directly in the vehicle's blind spot, leading to an unexpected contact. Creating clearly marked and physically separated walkways for pedestrians is crucial in any area with vehicle traffic. For operators, confirming a 360-degree view and using horns and spotters when visibility is limited prevents these situations. A tanker truck is parked in a loading yard while a forklift works nearby. A sudden and powerful release of energy occurs at the rear of the tanker. The handling of volatile substances demands strict safety protocols, including the complete elimination of all potential ignition sources from the surrounding area. A forklift transports a heavy, seemingly unbalanced load while a ground guide walks alongside it. The load shifts, becomes unstable, and tips off the forks in the direction of the guide. Loads must be centered, stable, and secured before transport. Ground personnel must always maintain a safe distance and never walk under or directly beside a suspended or moving load. Inside an auto repair shop, A technician uses a handheld tool to perform work on a large metal drum. The work creates conditions that cause a sudden and forceful pressurization event inside the drum. Never cut, grind, or perform any hot work on sealed containers or barrels. Even if presumed empty, residual vapors can create a highly volatile environment. Such tasks require specialized procedures, including thorough cleaning and ventilation. In a production facility, a worker manages material being fed into a large industrial roller machine. As he guides the material, his arm is drawn toward the machine's in-running nip point, creating a hazardous situation that requires the immediate assistance of his coworker. This demonstrates the critical need for effective machine guarding that creates a physical barrier at all points of operation. Wearing close-fitting clothing and receiving comprehensive, machine-specific safety training are also essential preventive measures. A team of mechanics performs maintenance underneath the raised component of a large vehicle in a workshop. The hydraulic system supporting the heavy component experiences an issue, causing the part to lower unexpectedly. Never work under a heavy load, supported only by hydraulics. Always use properly rated and positioned mechanical locks, jacks, or blocking to physically secure the load before beginning any maintenance. This ensures stability even if a hydraulic failure occurs. In an outdoor scrap yard, a worker begins using a cutting torch on a large, sealed metal tank. Several other people are nearby. The heat from the torch causes a powerful and sustained energetic release from the tank, creating a large fire that engulfs the immediate area and involves the worker. This is a critical safety lesson. Sealed containers must never be cut or welded. They can contain flammable residual vapors that can lead to a catastrophic event when an ignition source is introduced. Proper identification, ventilation, and cleaning of such objects by trained professionals are required before any processing. Workers are on the flatbed of a truck, preparing to receive a large bundle of metal pipes being lifted by a crane. The rigging used to lift the bundle gives way, causing the entire load to have an uncontrolled descent onto the truck bed where the workers are standing. The area directly beneath a suspended load is one of the most hazardous places on a job site. All personnel must remain clear of the drop zone until the load is securely landed and disconnected. A worker stands on a flatbed trailer to unstrap a load of heavy metal frames. As the final strap is released, the unsecured load becomes unstable and one of the frames slides off the side of the trailer. Unloading should be done in a planned sequence that maintains the stability of the remaining items. It's vital to assess how removing one restraint will affect the rest of the load, and to always have a clear exit path. In a storage warehouse, a truck carefully navigates around large stacks of steel coils. A person on foot walks through the same area. The driver, whose view is obstructed by the vehicle's frame and the surrounding materials, is unaware of the pedestrian's presence, and the truck's movement results in contact. Awareness of vehicle blind spots is critical for both drivers and pedestrians. High visibility vests, clear communication protocols, and maintaining eye contact with operators help ensure everyone is seen and safe. At a residential construction site, a crane is used to lift a large sack of material from a truck, while several people are gathered nearby. The lifting sack tears open mid-air, and the contents are released unexpectedly over the people and work area below. All lifting gear, including bulk bags and slings, must be inspected for damage and rated for the weight of the load. Most importantly, an exclusion zone must be enforced directly below any overhead lifting operation, ensuring no one is ever in the potential drop path.